Welcome to The Explainer. So, have you ever caught yourself wondering why on earth you can love someone so deeply, but then still get absolutely furious with them in the heat of the moment? Well, today we're jumping straight into this fascinating philosophical framework from October 2023 by Zhu Feng. It literally separates what we just feel from how we truly love, and it's going to completely change how you view your own reactions to the world.
Do you know the exact difference between what you feel and how you love? Right, it sounds like just semantics, but according to Zhu Feng, how you answer this actually defines your entire level of existence. We toss the words emotion and love around interchangeably all the time. But, as we're going to see, mixing those two up can actually keep us stuck on a lower rung of the ladder of life.
Okay, moving into our first section, emotion versus love, and the difference between psychological states and consciousness states.
Zhu Feng draws a really sharp line in the sand here. He defines emotion purely as an expression of a psychological state. It's basically a surface-level reaction. Love, though, that's elevated to a profound state of consciousness. They're just completely different animals. To really wrap our heads around this contrast, we need to look at how they actually show up in our everyday lives.
So our everyday psychological state, it's completely fragmented into exactly 8 shifting emotions: joy, anger, sorrow, happiness, sadness, worry, fear, and surprise. I mean, no wonder we're all so exhausted, right? But here's the wild part. Common things we hold dear, like family affection, friendship, or even romantic love, actually fall primarily under this turbulent emotional umbrella. They're ultimately just psychological reactions.
But then we look at love. In stark contrast, love acts as a pure consciousness state, and it expresses itself in literally only one unwavering form: joy. That's it. There's no fragmentation, no wild pendulum swings. It's just a singular, laser-focused state of being.
Which brings us to Section 2, the nature of change, looking at external circumstances versus inherent life.
Think about it like this. Our emotions are essentially at the mercy of the outside world. Someone's nice to you, you feel affection. They provoke you, you get resentful. You're bouncing around based on external factors. But a true consciousness state, that's an inherent expression of life. It doesn't budge an inch, no matter what kind of external pressure you throw at it. A great way to picture this is a parent's love. It doesn't just evaporate because their kid throws a massive tantrum in the middle of a grocery store. That love stays constant regardless of the child's behavior, proving that true love is this innate, unchanging anchor. It's a rock-solid consciousness state, not some fleeting reaction.
Let's move on to Section 3, defining the two domains, where we compare the scope of feelings with the scope of cognition. So, the domain of emotion is strictly about the scope of your feelings. Think of it like a head count. If your feelings are only directed at a tiny handful of people, like just your immediate family, your emotional domain is pretty narrow. If you expand your affections to a lot of objects, that domain broadens, but it's still just measuring who or what you care about psychologically.
The domain of love, on the other hand, goes way deeper. It doesn't just measure who you feel affection for. It measures your actual scope of love cognition. And this is an absolutely crucial metric because this domain literally dictates the realm of life you inhabit. The breadth of your love domain directly varies depending on the difference of life scope and realm.
All right, let's dive into Section 4, the hierarchy of life, ascending from the animal kingdom all the way to the Buddhas.
This is where we literally climb the ladder of existence. This progression maps exactly how our love cognition expands. We start out extremely narrow at the bottom with animals, take a step up to humans, expand way out to celestial beings, and finally hit that gloriously universal peak with Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Let's break down exactly how this looks. Starting at the first step with the animal kingdom. The text specifically points out that a mother bear, a tiger, or a bird will show extraordinary, fierce care. But that intense mama bear energy is solely directed at her own offspring. That love absolutely never crosses over to care for the offspring of other species. So it's an intensely powerful but incredibly narrow domain. Now, stepping up to the human level, our domain does broaden a bit, but honestly, maybe not as much as we'd like to think. We still naturally restrict our affection. We tend to reserve it for people we share blood relations with, our emotional connections, and those who share our mutual interests. We rarely extend that deep affection outside our own little personal bubble of benefit. Ascending higher, we hit celestial beings. Now we're talking. At this level, they completely break past those localized blood-based relations. Celestials predominantly express a profound, sweeping love for all of nature, its creatures, and the celestial realm itself. Their domain of love encompasses entire ecosystems rather than just a friend group or family unit.
And finally, right at the absolute peak, we have Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. They embody this elevated consciousness that just radiates love universally. Their domain includes absolutely every single life form in existence, humans included. It's the ultimate reflection of a broad perspective and a state of consciousness completely unrestricted by personal gain.
Which brings us to our final section, elevating your consciousness, looking at the core metric of cultivation.
This quote right here hits the nail on the head. Broader domains indicate higher life levels. Conversely, narrower domains suggest lower life levels. So your personal evolution isn't actually measured by how intense your feelings are. It's literally measured by the sheer breadth of your domain, by what you are capable of loving.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative question. If you strip away the fluctuating emotions and honestly audit your innate objects of affection right now, what level of life are you truly operating on? Are you still hovering at that level of blood and mutual interests, or are you actively broadening your domain? Think about it. Keep expanding that domain, and thanks so much for joining us.